Jesus' power over life and death. Welcome, dear brothers and sisters in Christ, and to every seeker who longs for truth that endures beyond time. Today, we open our hearts to one of the most astonishing realities ever revealed: the power of Jesus Christ over life and death. Across centuries, humanity has searched for the secret of immortality, built monuments to defy decay, and written philosophies to explain the meaning of existence. Yet no discovery, no empire, no idea has ever silenced death, until the moment a stone rolled away in Jerusalem, and a voice from an empty tomb changed the course of history. This is not legend, not symbol, but the very center of Christian faith, the victory of God made flesh over the final enemy. It is the truth that gives courage to the suffering, hope to the dying, and light to a world still shadowed by fear. If you have ever faced loss, if you have ever wondered whether love can outlast the grave, stay with this message to the end. You will see that the one who raised the dead still reigns, still speaks, and still offers life that no death can destroy. Before we begin, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and share this message so that the hope of Christ may reach every heart, every nation, every language under heaven. Let us become voices of resurrection in a world desperate for life. Now let us enter the mystery and behold the unshakable truth. Jesus Christ holds power over life and death in every generation. Humanity has wrestled with the same haunting question: what is stronger, life or death? Philosophers have debated it, poets have wept over it, and scientists have tried to prolong life to postpone the inevitable. Yet, despite our progress, one truth remains unchanged: no human being has ever mastered death. Kings, prophets, and conquerors have all bowed before it. Only one name in history stands apart: Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God. His life, death, and resurrection form the axis upon which all of human destiny turns. When Jesus walked the dusty roads of Galilee, he did not merely speak about life, he embodied it. The Gospel of John opens with the profound declaration: "In him was life, and that life was the light of men." John 1-4. Throughout his ministry, Jesus confronted death in its many forms: sickness, sin, despair, decay, and each time life triumphed. His miracles were not theatrical displays of divine power. They were previews of resurrection, glimpses into the coming kingdom where death itself would be undone. We see this vividly in three defining encounters. The first, with Jairus' daughter, Mark 5:35-43, demonstrates that even the freshly dead are not beyond his reach. The mourners had begun their lament, but Jesus said calmly, "The child is not dead but asleep." To the crowd, this was delusion. To Christ, it was definition. He entered the room, took the girl's hand, and with a tender authority that bridged heaven and earth, said, "Talitha cum, little girl, I say to you, arise." Immediately, life returned. No spell, no struggle, simply a command. The second, at Nain, Luke 7:11-17, is more striking. A widow's only son was being carried to burial. She had lost not only her child but her future. Jesus, seeing her tears, was moved with compassion. He touched the bier, an action that defied ritual law, and said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." The dead sat up and spoke. The gospel tells us that fear and awe seized the people, and they glorified God, saying, "A great prophet has arisen among us." God has visited his people, but more than a prophet had come, the Lord of life, himself had walked into their grief. Then comes the most dramatic of all, Lazarus of Bethany, John 11. For days dead, his body decaying, hope long gone. When Jesus arrived, Martha's words carried both faith and frustration. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus' answer resounded across history. "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live." Then, standing before the tomb, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come forth." And death obeyed. This moment was not just a miracle. It was a proclamation. Christ revealed himself as the one before whom even the grave must surrender. Yet these miracles were not ends in themselves. They were signs pointing toward the ultimate victory that would come through his own death and resurrection. When Jesus was crucified, the world saw defeat, but heaven saw fulfillment. On the cross, he entered fully into human mortality, taking upon himself not only physical death, but the spiritual death caused by sin, the separation of humanity from God. In dying, he entered the territory of the enemy. In rising, he conquered it forever. As the early church father Athanasius wrote in the 4th century, he destroyed death by his own death. 3 days after the crucifixion, the tomb that had been sealed by Rome and guarded by soldiers was found empty, not because Jesus needed to escape, but because the world needed to see. The angel's words were simple yet seismic. "He is not here. He has risen, just as he said," Matthew 28:6. The resurrection was not resuscitation, not a return to fragile life, but the birth of a new creation. Christ rose in a glorified body, beyond decay and time, inaugurating a new reality in which life, not death, is the final word. The Apostle Paul, writing to the Corinthians, captured this mystery with unmatched clarity. Death has been swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your sting? O grave, where is your victory? Em Coríntios 15, 54-55. Paul's confidence was not poetic exaggeration. It was testimony grounded in eyewitness experience. He, like Peter and the other apostles, had encountered the risen Christ. These encounters turned fear into fire, transforming a group of hiding disciples into fearless witnesses who shook empires. Their message was consistent and unwavering. Christ has risen, therefore death is defeated. From a theological perspective, the resurrection of Jesus validates every claim he made about himself. As Paul declares in Romans 1-4, he was declared to be the Son of God with power by the resurrection from the dead. Without the resurrection, Christianity would be moral philosophy. With it, it becomes divine revelation. The resurrection affirms that God has entered human history not merely to reform it, but to redeem it. Sin, which brought death into the world, was conquered by perfect obedience and sacrificial love. The Church Fathers consistently understood the resurrection as the axis of salvation history. Augustine of Hippo wrote that Christ rose so that we might rise. He ascended so that we might ascend. Gregory of Nyssa described the cross as a divine trap set for death itself. Death swallowed the body of Jesus, but found itself consumed by immortal life. This imagery echoes the Eastern liturgy of Easter, where the priest proclaims with joy, "Christ is risen from the dead," trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. In this light, Jesus' power over life and death is not simply an event to be admired, but a continuing force within the believer. As Paul writes in Romans 8:11, "The Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies. The resurrection is not confined to Easter morning. It pulses through every moment of faith. When a heart hardened by guilt finds forgiveness, resurrection happens. When a person enslaved by addiction finds freedom in Christ, resurrection happens. When despair gives way to hope, resurrection happens. Modern theology has explored this mystery through the lens of both history and experience. Scholars like N.T. Wright argue that the resurrection is the most historically grounded event of the ancient world, not a myth invented by grieving disciples, but the explosion of new creation into the old. Pope Benedict XVI, in Jesus of Nazareth, calls the resurrection the greatest mutation in the history of being, where matter itself is transformed and opened to eternity. These perspectives remind us that the resurrection is both historical and cosmic, an event and a transformation. But beyond scholarship, the power of Jesus over death speaks to the human heart. It tells the widow standing beside a fresh grave that death is not the end. It tells the sick and the suffering that their pain is temporary, their glory eternal. It tells the sinner that no pit is too deep for grace. The empty tomb is not merely proof of life after death. It is the promise of life before death, a life infused with purpose, courage, and peace throughout history. This truth has sustained believers in persecution, consoled them in grief, and inspired them in mission. The early martyrs walked into arenas singing because they knew death had already been defeated. Medieval mystics like Julian of Norwich could declare in times of plague and war, "All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well," because they believed in the living Christ. And today, countless testimonies echo the same power from hospital rooms where healing defies explanation to hearts renewed after years of darkness. The resurrection continues to ripple through time. To believe in Jesus' power over life and death is not escapism. It is realism at its deepest level. It recognizes that while mortality defines human existence, it does not define its destiny. The Christian does not deny death, but looks through it, seeing beyond the shadow to the light of the risen Christ. As the book of Revelation declares, Jesus himself says, "Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore." Revelation 1:17-18. That declaration remains the most revolutionary statement ever spoken. Empires have crumbled, philosophies have shifted, but no one has silenced the echo of that empty tomb. In Jesus Christ, life has triumphed once and for all. His resurrection is not merely an event we commemorate. It is a power we participate in. It calls us to live fearlessly, love sacrificially, and hope relentlessly. In the end, every tomb will yield to his voice. Every tear will be wiped away, and death itself will die. Until that day, believers live in the tension between the already and the not yet, already raised in spirit, not yet glorified in body, but certain that the outcome is secure. The victory of Jesus over life and death is not merely a doctrine. It is the heartbeat of creation restored. And so, to every soul who hears this truth, believe it, live it, and share it. For the power that raised Jesus from the grave still moves in the world, not as memory, but as presence. He reigns, he lives, and through him, life has the final word.